The 1990s were amazing for fantasy and science fiction. Some really big hitters came out, but it overshadowed some hidden gems that today we're going to take a look at. The top three underrated books from each year of the decade. Welcome to Fantasy for the Ages, the show where a father and son talk about fantasy, science fiction, horror, and other nerdy things that we enjoy. I'm Jim, the father of this channel. Thanks for returning or coming for the first time. In the midst of this series where I'm working through the decades, looking at the data and identifying the three most underrated books by the numbers of fantasy and science fiction for each year. I've got some amazing books to release, to share, to help you discover today, so that when you go hunting at that used bookstore, you have something to look out for. Great books that just, were overshadowed by the big blockbusters of the decade. Not every book can shine, but these books, they're all worthy, and I look forward to sharing them with you. If you enjoy this episode, as always, be sure to hit that like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet. We just love sharing all this extra stuff with you. One little side note before I dive into the books, we do have an episode coming up soon with my son, Zach. We recorded it just a couple days ago. I'm going to get through this series first, and then it should be ready to release too. And it's talking about classic fantasy as well, because I raised my boy right, and he and I both enjoy good books from now, but also from the past. So watch for that coming soon. All right, the 1990s. I'm ready to dive in, except that you guys have been watching my videos so carefully, you catch the errors. I got a correction from the 1980s. I look at so much data to pull these numbers together, and I really work hard to not let errors slip through, but yep, another error made it by the proof checking. I inaccurately listed The Ragged World by Judith Moffett for 1986, one of the top three underrated books. The novel was indeed underappreciated. That's not the issue. But in 1986, it was completely unknown because it didn't come out until 1990. It could have been in this decade's video. Moffat did have a short story come out in 86, but really she was just getting going with her writing career. The dates just got flipped on me as I was working through all the details. So thank you to my engaged viewers who don't let any of these slip by. I really appreciate you watching all of this so carefully. And for this episode, I have triple checked all these numbers. I dare you to find one that's wrong here. You will not. While 1990 gave us immensely successful novels like Jurassic Park by Michael Crichton and The Eye of the World, the start of Robert Jordan's The Wheel of Time epic fantasy series, which, did something like over 100 million copies across the series. Here's three gems that have never been able to quite grab the same level of spotlight or acclaim. Third most underrated is Summertide by Charles Sheffield. This is a hard sci-fi space opera and also has elements of archaeological first contact built in. It's book 1 of 5 of his Heritage universe. It introduces the Heritage universe, archaeologists and opportunists exploring ancient alien artifacts. It's praised for its rigorous science, thoughtful pacing, and rich world building. Summertide didn't receive major awards and often gets overlooked in space opera retrospectives, despite launching a beloved series. It's worth going back and taking a look. Number 2 for 1990 is Earth by David Brin. This is environmental science fiction and speculative near-future content, and is a standalone novel. The sprawling eco-thriller explores climate breakdown, ecological tipping points, and geopolitical fallout spurred by a lost micro black hole. Come on, that interests you. It earned Hugo and Locust nominations and strong critical praise at the time for its foresight on environmental issues. Yet it's now rarely mentioned in top science fiction of the 90s lists. It just faded away. But number 1 is The World at the End of Time by Frederick Pohl. This is hard sci fi of a cosmological leaning and is a standalone novel. This ambitious novel spans from human times into the universe's heat death, weaving together cosmic scale and intimate human story as a single narrative. While Pohl was a major science fiction figure, this novel didn't see award wins and often gets overshadowed by his earlier works. Its thematic depth, survival, entropy, cosmic perspective remains compelling, yet underappreciated. While there was a great deal of buzz and success for many science fiction and fantasy books in 1991, including Heir to the Empire, Book One of the Thrawn Star Wars trilogy by Timothy Zahn, best original, I guess, legends Star Wars of all, and Outlander by Diana Gabaldon, which kicked off another massively popular series. Here's three that flew under the radar and may deserve some love. Third most underrated is A Maze of Stars by John Brunner. This is literary space opera and is a standalone novel. Brunner's novel explores a sentient starship shepherding interstellar civilization with rich philosophical and emotional nuance. Despite its strengths, it never received major award recognition and is seldom mentioned in modern space opera conversations. Number two, Bone Dance by Emma Bull. This is urban fantasy and post-apocalyptic science fiction, a standalone novel. We're talking a genre-defying blend of cyberpunk, voodoo, and myth. Bone Dance earned nominations for Hugo, Nebula, and World Fantasy Awards in 1992, yet it never secured mainstream attention, overshadowed by more conventional contemporaries. But number one for 1991 was Raft by Stephen Baxter. This is a hard sci-fi novel, book one of Stephen's Zeely sequence. Baxter's debut novel plunges readers into a universe with gravity much stronger than ours, a mind-bending premise grounded in serious science. It was nominated for the 1992 Arthur C. Clarke Award, yet remains almost unknown outside hard sci-fi circles. 1992. This is the year Ian M. Banks had his Culture series exploding onto American awareness with the US printing of The Player of Games, while Neil Stephenson delivered his amazing Snow Crash. Yet other books were delightfully deserving, didn't get the recognition. Still don't. Here's the three most underrated. Number three is Farseer by Robert J. Sawyer. This is science fiction, a planetary mystery with elements of Alien First Contact, and is book one of the Quintaglio Ascension trilogy. A First Contact fable starring sentient dinosaur-like Quintaglios on a moon, with strong allegorical links to Galileo's struggles. Despite winning the Homer Award and acclaim from the Toronto Star, it rarely makes top best of the 90s sci-fi lists. Its blend of keen social insight and accessible hard sci-fi underlines why it deserves far broader recognition. Number two for 1992 is Ammonite by Nicola Griffith, or Nicola Griffith. I never know how to say a name like this. I hear Nicola. Some of you know what I'm referencing. A science fiction novel. It's anthropological and gendered world building. That's something new. This is a standalone novel. This debut novel posits a planet populated entirely by women, survivors of a virus ravaging Earth. It's celebrated critically, winning the Lambda Literary and Otherwise Awards, and shortlisted for the Clark and the Locus. And it was praised by Ursula K. Le Guin, yet it hasn't found lasting prominence in mainstream science fiction circles. Its deep thematic engagement with gender, community, and isolation remains underappreciated. But number one for 1992 is Alien Earth by Megan Lindholm. This is science fiction, eco-speculative fiction, and a space opera style. It's a standalone novel. Hopefully you recognize that name. Megan Lindholm also writes fantasy under the name Robin Hobb. This rich eco-sci-fi epic follows humans evacuated by alien beast ships only to return to a healing, dangerous Earth. It received glowing praise. Pure science fiction of a beautiful richness was one quote, and was even nominated for a Nebula, yet quickly went out of print and slipped into obscurity. Thematically, it blends ecological deep time with AI and interspecies stewardship, far deeper than its limited readership suggests. 1993 saw Connie Willis launch her Oxford time travel series with Hugo and Nebula Award winning Doomsday Book, and had the immensely successful YA selection The Giver by Lois Lowry. A lot of you read that in school. But you really should check out these additional acclaimed novels with rich thematic depth and high ratings, yet relatively barely any copies sold. Number 3 is Godspeed by Charles Sheffield. This is a space opera adventure, science fiction, and a coming of age story, and is a standalone novel. This coming of age story is set aboard a legendary spaceship and blends technical rigor with emotional resonance. Despite strong reviews and enthusiastic support from peers like David Brin, Godspeed lacked award nominations and mainstream attention. It remains a compelling narrative, but it's overlooked by many. Number 2 was Core by Paul Preuss. This is hard science fiction of the geoscience adventure style and is a standalone novel. We've got a gripping techno thriller here about descending to Earth's core to avert global catastrophe. I mean, they make top-notch movies on this theme. This book does it. Before those. Critics praised its scientific accuracy and suspense. One in the Kirkus reviews called it a fascinating scientific technical spectacle, yet it never reached major bestseller lists or won any awards. Rich concept, fantastic execution, underappreciated. But number 1 is Muddle Earth by John Brunner. This is surreal and satirical science fiction and is a standalone novel. This quirky, strange novel, where Earth becomes a theme park and culture is a caricature, showcases Brunner's wit and prescient satire. Despite his earlier acclaim, such as Stand on Zanzibar, Muddle Earth received little attention, making it a hidden gem ripe for your discovery. 1994, the heart of the 90s, a fun time for science fiction and fantasy fans. Lois McMaster Bujold came out with the highly acclaimed Mirror Dance, a novel of her Foucauldian sci-fi series that took the Hugo and Locus Awards and got a Nebula nod, while Robert Jordan's The Wheel of Time reached critical mass amongst epic fantasy fans with Book 6, Lord of Chaos. But here's 3 novels that, despite strong critical praise and reader passion, did poorly on the actual award circuit and faded from reader awareness. Number 3 is Mother of Storms by John Barnes. This is climate fiction and a techno-thriller sci-fi novel and is a standalone. This is a high-tension eco-disaster epic where methane-released megastorms ravage the Earth. Nominated for Hugo, Nebula, and Clark Awards, it merges rigorous science, geopolitical stakes, and large-scale drama, yet has not maintained a visible place in the eco-thriller canon. The second most underrated novel of 1994 is Brittle Innings by Michael Bishop. This is a fantasy novel, magical realism, and it's a sports allegory. It's also a standalone novel. This is a bizarre mashup. Frankenstein's monster joins a minor league baseball team in World War II era Georgia. This is the winner of the 1995 Locus Award, and it was a finalist for the Hugo, the Campbell, and the World Fantasy Award. Despite the critical acclaim, it remains obscure, often overlooked as one of the most inventive, myth-heavy sports fables in genre fiction. One person was quoted as saying it was the best ever sequel to Frankenstein. You gotta check that one out. But number 1 for 1994, most underrated and underappreciated, is Tonguing the Zeitgeist by Lance Olson. This is postmodern, speculative, satirical sci-fi and is a standalone novel. A psychedelic, media-saturated satire set in post-Quake Seattle. We follow a musician manipulated by the music industry. It was a finalist for the 1994 Philip K. Dick Award. It blends dark humor, critical edge, and experimental narrative, yet it remains largely unknown outside avant-garde pop circles. The Golden Compass, originally called Northern Lights on its initial release in the UK in July of 1995, was one of a number of books to both find commercial success and critical recognition in that mid-90s year. Some books, not so fortunate. Here are the three most underrated novels of 1995. Number 3, The Star Fraction by Ken MacLeod. This is a political sci-fi novel, a near-future thriller, and leans into cyberpunk. Book 1 of his Fall Revolution trilogy. This is an intricate political thriller set in a fragmented United Kingdom, exploring intelligence augmentation, anarchist microstates, and coded revolutions. It was nominated for the 1996 Clark Award, yet it remains largely overlooked by mainstream sci-fi. Strong conceptual merit and ambition, but low recognition. Second most underrated for 95 is I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman. This was originally published in 1995 in French. The English translation didn't come around until 2019, but the original dystopian novel is from 1995, and French people read fiction. The genre is dystopian speculative fiction, and it's a feminist allegory. Standalone novel. This is a stark allegory centered on a girl and 39 women imprisoned in isolation, rich with existential and feminist themes. It recently gained attention due to a TikTok revival, but at release, it remained completely obscure. High emotional and thematic depth, yet virtually no awards and no sustained readership. Since it's in English, you might want to find it out now. If you speak French, well, maybe you already knew about it. But number 1 for 95 is Tech Heaven by Linda Nagata. This is near-future sci-fi of the biopunk subgenre and is also a nanotech thriller. Book 1 of the Tech Heaven series. A haunting, character-driven exploration of cryogenics, nanotechnology, and emotional stakes decades after trauma. Despite winning critical praise and being hailed in Wired magazine as one of the most haunting science fiction books, it never gained widespread fame. High thematic depth and emotional heft, but minimal mainstream visibility puts it at number 1. The year 1996 brought us the debut of A Song of Ice and Fire by George R.R. Martin as he rolled out A Game of Thrones, a book that ended up as a sales juggernaut and spun off into the HBO adaptation. We also had Peter F. Hamilton's The Reality Dysfunction, the start of the Night's Dawn trilogy that helped define grand-scale British sci-fi of this era. But here's 3 other books that never captured the public's attention as their quality deserved. Third most underrated is Metal Fatigue by Sean Williams. This is a post-apocalyptic political sci-fi novel and is a standalone. Set in a decaying post-nuclear United States of America, Metal Fatigue explores urban survival amid political tension and intrigue. While it won the Aurealis Award of 1996, it remains largely unknown outside Australia and hasn't garnered attention in broader global sci-fi circles, despite its nuanced take on reconstruction and governance. Second most underrated for 96 is Remnant Population by Elizabeth Moon. This is science fiction of the Alien Contact style and is a standalone. Centered on a 70-year-old colonial matriarch who opts to stay behind when colonists evacuate her world, this quietly powerful novel contrasts stoic resilience with xenobiology and colonial critique. That's a lot going on. Though it received a Hugo nomination in 97, it hasn't achieved broader recognition and slipped into obscurity despite rich thematic resonance. But number 1 for 96 is The Tranquility Alternative by Alan Steele. This is alternate history and a near-future thriller and is a standalone novel. This tense, hard science thriller explores a Cold War style lunar arms race gone awry, combining space drama, geopolitics, and realistic scientific detail. Despite strong technical grounding and compelling pacing, it received little mainstream attention and no major awards, making it ripe for re evaluation by modern readers. 1997 saw the fantasy world flipped upside down as J.K. Rowling published Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone in the United Kingdom. While it wouldn't come out until the next year in the US, the phenomenon had begun. Meanwhile, in the United States, a YA retelling of Cinderella called Ella Enchanted was quite a hit, eventually landing even a great movie adaptation in 2004. Have you seen that? It is pretty good. But what about the unsung, high quality other books of science fiction and fantasy in 97? Here's the three most underappreciated. Number three, The Marrow Tree by Katie Waitman. This is science fiction with an interspecies romance element and is a standalone novel. It's praised on Reddit as way ahead of its time. Yeah, I quoted Reddit. I'm hip. Come on. And it featured an interspecies romance that explores art, censorship, and sexual identity. The Marrow Tree has garnered cult appreciation, yet it remains out of print and footnoted in most sci-fi histories. If you can score a copy at a used bookstore, consider yourself lucky. Second most underrated is Einstein's Bridge by John G. Kramer. This is hard sci-fi of the alternate history style and is a standalone. Crafted by physicist turned author John Kramer, this novel dives deeply into the world of high energy physics and the superconducting supercollider project. It balances scientific authenticity with emotional narrative, but never gained any major awards or sustained attention, despite its credible presence and depth. But number one for this year is Jack Faust by Michael Swanwick. This is a steampunk novel and is reimagined myth. It's also a standalone. A bold retelling of the Faust legend, this richly imaginative novel explores rapid technological growth and ethical hubris. It earned nominations for the Hugo and the British Science Fiction Awards in '98, but never won. And despite its intellectual heft, remains overlooked in Swanwick's bibliography. J.K. Rowling kept fantasy on top in '98 with her second of the series, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, still a year later in the US. But Neverwhere by Neil Gaiman, which had come out in the UK in '96, hit the States in '98, and was a massive bestseller, frequently listed amongst the best SFF of 1998 by reviewers. These sorts of hits kept other quality novels from catching the mainstream. Here's the three most under the radar according to the data. These may need some light. Number three is Halfway Human by Carolyn Ives Gilman, a thought-provoking dystopian gender exploration sci-fi novel, and it's a standalone. This is a powerful, unsettling novel set on a planet where an asexual Bland is systematically dehumanized. While nominated for the James Tiptree Jr. Award, it was largely overlooked upon release. Its deep exploration of gender identity, oppression, and personhood merits much broader recognition. Number two for this year is Vast by Linda Nagata. Hard science fiction of the nanotech thriller subgenre. This is part of the Nanotech Succession series by Linda Nagata, but it's a standalone novel. It's just loosely connected to the other books in that series. It's a taut, well-constructed adventure about a refugee ship escaping a relentless alien threat. Vast is lauded for its scientific plausibility and emotional intelligence. Despite praise from sci-fi critics and being referenced by Alastair Reynolds, it never secured major awards and remains underdiscussed in mainstream sci-fi channels. But number one for '98 is The Extremes by Christopher Priest, a psychological science fiction virtual reality thriller. This is a standalone novel. Winner of the 1998 British Science Fiction Award, The Extremes offers a chilling and layered exploration of virtual reality, trauma, and violent crime. Despite its thematic richness and critical acclaim, it never gained mainstream attention or major international awards, leaving it largely overshadowed in Priest's collection. 1999 wasn't just about what was the next Harry Potter, The Prisoner of Azkaban, by the way, another major blockbuster in sales, and the first to be released in both the US and the UK in the same year. But we also saw A Deepness in the Sky by Werner Vinge, which won the Hugo and had a bunch of sales. So it won over a lot of people. And we also had Hearts in Atlantis, which sold like crazy as a Stephen King book, but did even better than usual since its supernatural themes gave it crossover appeal. It's hard to shine in the midst of such brightness, but here's the three most underrated that sadly just never had a chance. Third most underrated is Rewind by William Sleater. This is a coming-of-age story and is a time loop YA science fiction novel. It's a standalone. A thoughtful time loop novel featuring an 11-year-old protagonist confronting mortality and family through repeated timelines. Although reviewed well in a number of publications, it never achieved mainstream recognition and has since faded away. Number 2 is Terranesia by Greg Egan. This is hard sci-fi of the biological environmental style and is a standalone. A character-driven exploration of evolutionary biology and climate change set against an Indonesian Civil War backdrop. Critically acclaimed, it won the 1999 Aurealis Award and was a Hugo nominee. Still, it remains underread outside of Egan's dedicated fan base. Deep thematic complexity on consciousness, genetics, post-colonial identity. There's a lot to explore in this book. You might want to find it. But number 1 for 1999, the last book of this particular video, is Vigilant by James Allen Gardner. This is a space opera style, near future detective science fiction book, and it's book 3 of his League of Peoples series. We've got a sharp combination of mystery and galactic ethics, starring an every woman heroine in a richly diverse universe. Praised by Sci-Fi Site for strong character work and pacing, it lacked broader exposure and didn't have any award success. All right, those are the books, the hidden gems I've uncovered for you in the 90s. What do you think? Any of you out there actually heard of all of these books? Again, I'll be shocked. But I do want to know which ones you remember, you recall, you've read. What have been your experiences with these books? I always love reading what you post, and you know I respond, so please do. Also, look down in the show notes for ways that you can interact with Zach and I beyond the comment box. A number of you have joined our Discord server lately. Glad to have you there with us and a whole bunch of other SFF fans just talking about books and other nerdy things. Come check that out. The invitation is in the show notes. Also, links to our social media sites and a link to our Patreon page. Thank you to those of you who already subscribe, support us on Patreon. A little bit of money each month helps us keep this coming out. All right, that's where I'll leave you for today. Thanks for joining me in the 90s. We'll talk to you next time.